So the Cowboys have a cap problem, and that seems like the problem every year, right? And I get it, the money part of it, and we got an owner and son with diarrhea at the mouth that like to bring up money as the problem, the cap issue. So with this whole notion that Amari Cooper would be the first big domino to fall as relates to the Cowboys trying to get out of that cap situation. And we all know that we can all kick the can down the street, restructure, and then the salary cap will always increase. For example, the Saints played with, I believe, $76 million over the cap, but that's a story of a different day, right? But the Cowboys will go into the mindset of, hey, we got to get under the cap and we got to operate under the cap, which I get it. So now that if we do decide to move on from Amari Cooper, which will save you about $16 million, give or take, or more, who do you go get? Who do you re-sign out of that money? And these are logical things that you have to take a look at. Do you bring back a Michael Gallup on a prove-it deal? Or do you sign up Cedrick Wilson for a longer-term contract? Or do you dibble-dabble into the draft? Those are the things that we have to ask ourselves as it relates to the Dallas Cowboys. And, of course, Dak Prescott, his biggest contract was signed last season, right? And he already did some restructuring to save up and to free up some money, which got him down $34 to $35 million a year. So we can point fingers and say, okay, yeah, the quarterback is taking the biggest chunk of the money. But it's kind of strange to me that when we talk about this, we go back to the quarterback. Well, to be fair with everybody, yes, this is his, going into his second year out of this big money being taken away from the Cowboys. What happened to all of the other years when he was getting paid $680-something thousand, right? Barely making $1 million. And I'm not trying to count money, but what were the Cowboys doing during all that time? And it goes back to this saying right here. If you keep talking about the money as an issue, it will be the issue. I just wish that John Stephen Jones, he figured this thing out, signed the players that need it, and move on. But by them talking about this and talking about that, it sullies and muddies the water. Just like what CeeDee Lamb was saying, hey, talking about this stuff stresses Amari Cooper's out. Now, granted, I talked about the fact that last night shout out to my guys from the Final Word, we talked about this. That the Jones family, Cap Boy, or my guy Big Game James say Baby Nuts Jones, say that this man keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. And on the latter part, sources told Mike Fisher that they are planning on cutting Anthony Brown, right, to save $5 million, right? Save that $5 million to then turn around and say, hey, man, we want to re-sign you back. You know what I'm saying? That's the craziest thing, because by you announcing that takes away any trade value, right? And I get it, right? You can say, well, what you going to get, a fifth or a sixth-round draft pick for Anthony Brown? But what's going to happen is that a team is going to look at Anthony Brown and say, okay, the Cowboys are only going to sign you for a one-year deal for to be a backup. But one of these other 31 other teams will say, hey, we want you to be our starter. Oh, we'll give you a 2-year or 3-year deal. That quite frankly happened, right? And I'm not saying that Anthony Brown is a shutdown, lockdown cornerback. But keep in mind, those calls that he got for the Cowboys with the silver and blue on, he goes to another market, he's not going to be targeted like that, So it just muddies the water when sources say, okay, these are our strategies, this is my plan, this is our goal, and this is what we're going to do. Sources need to hush too. And I ain't talking about Mike Fisher. I mean, the man is hustling. He getting what he can get. I ain't bashing the man for that. But the sources who's telling the strategy of the Cowboys, loose lip sink big ships, But neither here nor there, Cowboy Nation. Cedrick Wilson, if he is the replacement of Amari Cooper, and if you look at the wide receiver structure, they saying that they're going to utilize Simi Fehoko as a hybrid wide receiver. And you can look at CeeDee Lamb. Do you still say, okay, I'm going to bring back the two? Because I really look at Michael Gallup. You don't know what you're going to get out of that, injury coming off of the injury. We just don't know. How do this thing all shake out? Well, for one thing I do know for sure, the Dallas Cowboys, like Stephen Jones said, they're not planning on making a lot of big moves in free agency, that they're going to try to live through the draft. Cowboys do. They draft pretty well. So now it's an old wait and see type of moment. And that's all we can do now. Just sit back and relax and see what the Cowboys are going to do in this draft. Because outside of that, I just don't see any big-name free agents coming over here and making moves when he literally said, we're going to try to sign our own guys. But first and foremost, we're going to cut the fat off of it. And they looking at Amari Cooper as the fat. They gonna cut the fat off the meat, right? So, Catboy Jones or Baby Nuts Jones or John Stephen Jones, shout out to him. They're looking to do just that. Cut the fat off. That means move on from Amari Cooper. The only if I'm gonna say with this, if he restructures and then he stays. But that's the story of a different day. And they got to figure out this Dalton Schultz and Randy Gregory situation. Now, I do know that when you look at Dalton Schultz numbers, as it relates to what Dak Prescott been doing with him, he's been the go-to target. And there is a stat line out there with 12 personnel. I can tell you a little bit about 12 personnel a little bit later. But if you got O.J. Howard out there for $2 to $3 million, opposed to paying a guy like Dalton Schultz $12 to $13 million, man, you better figure that thing out. And Blake Jarwin is still under contract. And I'm not saying that O.J. Howard is better than a Dalton Schultz, but what I'm saying is that give him the opportunity in this system. Think about that. And on top of that, with Randy Gregory, I think that they look at Randy Gregory as a project that they put in a lot of time in with. And something's going to shake out a deal with that. Maybe it's a one-year prove-it situation with him. But it better not be the franchise tag. Post me your thoughts, post me your concerns down below. Let's go, Cowboy Nation. Let's rock, let's roll, baby. Salute.